Good evening. It is 7 p.m. and this is the November 19th regular City Commission meeting for the City of Ormond Beach. We are in the Commission chambers, and I hope you felt welcome this evening when you came in. Our Leisure Services Director, Robert Carolyn, and Fire Chief Rusty Sievers were our greeters tonight. I'd like to introduce the folks who are sitting up in front of you. To my right, your left, is Recording Secretary Cassidy Ritz, our City Clerk, Colby Salento, City Commissioner from Zone 1, Dwight Selby, our Deputy Mayor and City Commissioner from Zone 2, Troy Kent. To my left and your right is Commissioner Susan Persis from Zone 3, Commissioner Rob Littleton from Zone 4, our City Manager, Joyce Shanahan, Assistant City Manager, Claire Whitley, and City Attorney, Randy Hayes. For those of you listening online, I'm Mayor Bill Partington. If you would, please silence your cell phones and then rise for the invocation provided by Pastor Jason Holt from Salty Church tonight, and that'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, let's pray. Father God, we just thank you so much that you are a God of blessing, that you are an awesome God. And we just thank you so much, Lord, for just that we get to live in such a beautiful place. And God, in just this moment, we thank you as well for all of those that have worked so hard to make Ormond Beach the city that it is today. And God, we just ask for your spirit of unity in this room tonight, that you would give wisdom and leadership in the decisions that are made, God, to continue to keep Ormond Beach an amazing place for generations to come. We just thank you that we can ask all this in the mighty, amazing name of Jesus Christ, in whose name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move to audience remarks, and I have Mike McBride.
Good evening, City Commissioners. Michael McBride, 58 River Drive. I'm here to speak for Roger Nutt of 2587 John Anderson Drive, who cannot be here this evening. This is in regards to the septic to sewer conversion of Ormond by the Sea. The decision has apparently been made to defer any further work on this project until a scientific study can be completed to identify the origins and transport mechanisms of the nitrogenous pollution found in the Halifax River and Tomoka River Basin. The petitioners of Ormond by the Sea welcome this very sensible decision. The scientific work necessary to complete this essential task will be neither trivial nor simplistic. It can only be undertaken by an organization with the appropriate staff, knowledge, and experience to fully understand the implications and complexity of the work involved, and preferably with the additional background to offer practical and realistic solutions to the permanently resolving the pollution problem in the Halifax and Tomoka River Basin. The petitions of Ormond by the Sea are aware of two organizations with operations in this area who are capable of completing both aspects of this complex operation. Their identities and the contact information will be provided on the written application to the following that I will present to the clerk for the record. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Janet Nutt. Good evening.
My name is Janet Nutt, 2587 John Anderson, Ormond by the Sea. In a prior meeting after one of our first appearances, it is my understanding that this commission met and requested that the City Planning Board eliminate some of the wording that would lead to annexation of Ormond by the Sea. We were told that some of the commissioners did not even realize that the wording was still in the code. Your panel felt that the citizens of Ormond by the Sea would be more receptive to septic sewer conversions if we didn't have it in the back of our minds that the city was trying to annex us. We have researched the commission minutes and other records, and we cannot find actual wording that this in fact happened. While I think I understand that the Commission has to request the change to the Planning Board and the Planning Board has first vote, I find it odd that this appears nowhere in your minutes. Tonight, I'm asking the Commission to provide us with the actual written request to the Planning Board that says the code is to be changed and the City of Ormond Beach no longer wishes to annex us. You have both my address and phone number to provide me with this. Also, let's not forget that the citizens of Ormond by the Sea are still demanding that we have representation in whatever research is decided upon to determine the source of pollution in our waterways. Not a simple testing of septic systems, but an actual study done to identify where the pollution is coming from. For example, wastewater plants, both upstream and downstream, and prohibited fertilization of lawns and farms. Thank you.
Thank you. Rashida Hakim.
Rashida Hakim, Ormond by the Sea. 2 weeks ago, we were pleased to learn that the Ormond Beach City Commission agreed to support our request for testing to determine whether the septic systems of Ormond by the Sea are contributing significantly to the nutrient pollution of the Halifax River and Tomoka Basin. This testing must include definitive indication that our systems are the source of the pollution, as opposed to septic systems at other locations near the river, fertilizer runoff, the water treatment plants, or any of the other possible contributors of nitrogen and phosphorus. So must include soil sampling and analysis, and the testing must be performed over a long enough period of time to account for seasonal variations of the water table. We have attempted to contact City Manager Joyce Shanahan several times over the last 2 weeks to discuss the specifics of this testing, but unfortunately we have not been able to set up a meeting with her. We've also reached out to Jen Elston, but this has not been successful either. Ormond by the Sea homeowners were not included in the initial discussions about this septic to sewer project, and we appreciate that the Commission has listened to us and agreed that we deserve to have a voice in determining the next steps, testing to learn exactly how we can make the greatest improvements in water quality of the Halifax and whether our septic systems are polluting, but we still don't seem to be in the loop. We want to know when we can expect the city's comprehensive plan to be amended. We want to know what's going on with testing and what has been going on with requests for funding from the state and other sources. With 782 new septic systems permitted and installed in Volusia County this year to date, and with many Ormond Beach residents who are on septic and want to be on sewer, we aren't going to accept simple water test results as indicative of our systems causing issues. We deserve the consideration of the Commission with regard to all aspects of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jim Schultz.
Jim Schultz, 117 Harvard. I'd like to thank Commissioner Persis for making me more interested in the plastics issue. Have to admit, though, for years I've picked up plastic on the beach a couple times a day, often when I'm on the beach. So I've always been interested, but a little bit more in the technical aspects. And just want to mention, Dr. Mercola, who lives locally, has the #1 health site in the world, and puts out a lot of very good articles. But free speech is actually becoming dead on the internet because, well, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't think that he deserves coverage, so he's hidden on all searches now. He's being demonetized. In other words, Mark Zuckerberg is king when it comes to free speech and information. And Bill Posey, congressman down a little bit in Florida, interviewed or questioned him and found out that, well, yeah, he did admit that you couldn't find it if you looked for it and you did any search, you would never find his article. But if you knew the website address, you could still go to it. In other words, yeah, he's banned. But what I was going to actually talk about before I thought about that important issue was the plastics. Coca-Cola Corporation is the most polluting globally, not necessarily in the U.S. There's so many competitors for that title that it's hard to be #1 against Coke. In Africa, you can own the country and create all of the pollution. But I was reading a wonderful article by a kid who, at age 16, he came up with the idea of developing a system to collect part of the massive size of a continent almost plastic between Asia and the Pacific and California. And anyways, he's come up with an idea, and they're doing prototypes on it using currents and screens. Wonderful idea. But the fact is, BPA was and is being replaced by BPS and BP. These are endocrine disruptors. BPA was never proven safe. They knew it mimicked estrogen and caused a whole litany of problems. The problem is the two things that they've gone towards appear to be just as hazardous, and no plastic has ever truly been tested for safety.
Thank you, Jim. The minutes have been sent to the commission for review, posted to the city's website. Any additions, deletions, corrections? Seeing none, I just need a motion to approve.
I move to approve the November 5th, 2019 minutes.
Second.
We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, and we'll show those passing unanimously. And move on to the consent agenda. Does any member wish to pull any item from the consent agenda? We just need a motion and a second.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second the motion.
Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Selby?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Persis?
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton?
Yes.
Mayor Partington?
Yes, and now would be the appropriate time if any member of the commission wished to comment on any consent agenda item. Deputy Mayor Kent.
Yes, I just briefly wanted to talk about our renewal with our health care. And I see Jessica Scott is in the audience, and I just wanted to publicly say thank you for your efforts and the efforts of Brown & Brown, helping to make sure our city stays competitive. It's a great partnership. And please let Hyatt and the rest of the executives at Brown & Brown know that I personally appreciate the great work you all do for the city. Thanks.
Anyone else? Very well. We will move to public hearings. This time I'll open the public hearings and ask the city clerk to read 7A.
Ordinance number 2019-41, an ordinance adopting and enacting a new land development code for the city of Ormond Beach, providing for the repeal of certain ordinances not included therein, providing a penalty for violations thereof, providing the manner for amending said code, and setting forth and providing an effective date. This is the first reading of ordinance number 2019-41, read by title only.
Thank you, Colby. I'll ask Planning Director Stephen Spraker to speak about this item.
Good evening, Stephen Spraker. This is a request to accept a review and recodification of the Land Development Code from the Muni Code Corporation. There are no policy changes, no changes to zoning or anything. What they did do was go through and update the code to be consistent with Florida statute references. They amended the definitions based on state laws, and they went through and codified all the internal consistency. So it was really a housekeeping and cleaning of the Land Development Code. The planning board did review it. They recommended 7-0 to approve it, and staff also recommends approval.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions for Stephen? I don't have any cards. We just need a motion in a second.
Mayor, I'd like to move ordinance number 2019-41.
Thank you.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Please call the vote.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Persis?
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Selby?
Yes.
Mayor Partington?
Yes, and we will close the public hearings, move to 8A, first reading of ordinances.
Ordinance number 2019-42, an ordinance amending section 22-115, fee imposed, schedule of chapter 22, water and sewers of the City of Ormond Beach Code of Ordinances by increasing the water and sewer service impact fees, repealing all inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, and setting forth an effective date. This is the first reading of ordinance number 2019-42, read by title only.
Thank you, Colby. I don't have any cards. Just need a motion in a second.
I move to approve ordinance number 2019-42.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the vote.
Commissioner Persis,
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton,
Yes.
Commissioner Selby,
Yes.
Commissioner Kent,
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes. And that brings us to 9A, second reading of ordinances.
Ordinance number 2019-40, an ordinance amending the annual budget for fiscal year 2018 to 2019 by amending the Downtown Redevelopment Trust Fund 104, the Stormwater Utility Fund 107, the Airport Fund 108, the Pension Contribution Pass-Through Fund 113, the Grants Fund 116, the 2010 Beachfront Park Bond Fund 220, the Capital Improvements Fund 301, the Equipment Renewal and Replacement Fund 302, the Transportation Improvements Fund 308, the Recreational Impact Fee Fund 310, the Water and Wastewater Fund 401, the Renewal and Replacement Fund 409, the Water System Impact Fee Fund 434, the Wastewater System Impact Fee Fund 435, the Water and Wastewater Construction Fund 445, the Solid Waste Fund 460, the Workers' Compensation Fund 502, and the General Liability Fund 504, and setting forth an effective date. This is the second reading of ordinance number 2019-40, read by title only.
Thank you. I don't have any cards. Just need a motion in a second.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the vote.
Commissioner Littleton,
Yes.
Commissioner Selby,
Yes.
Commissioner Kent,
Yes.
Commissioner Persis,
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes. Thank you. And now we are at reports, suggestions, and requests, possibly in record time. And tonight we start with City Manager Joyce Shanahan.
No pressure there, right?
That's right. That's right.
Just a couple of points. First of all, Jen Elston followed up with Ms. Hakeem because neither she or I have received anything from her, and she explained to Jen that someone else said that they were supposed to contact us, and she assumed that they did. Well, they haven't, so Jen gave her card, so we'll make sure we follow up with her. Secondly, regarding Mrs. Nutt's inquiry, the city staff gives direction, the city commission gives direction to the city staff, and then we move that forward through the process. So the planning board will hear the LDC amendment for the annexation policy regarding the North Penn at their meeting on Thursday, December meeting on, what's the date? December 12th. And then once they hear it, then they bring it to the city commission. So it's a process. And so we haven't forgot about it, and we'll make sure that we advise Ms. Nutt about that. Two other issues. On December 3rd, we mentioned to you last time that we wanted to bring the traffic calming program to you, so we'll do that at a workshop at 5:30. And then 56 North Beach Street, we will bring the use analysis to you on January 7th at your 5:30 meeting. And then one last thing, as you know, and I have a whole list of projects that I can read off if you'd like, but in the interest of time and getting us out of here, I won't do that. We've been working on Casson Park with the floating dock, and so we've had, a great deal of construction. This week was a lot of mobilization last week, and this week, getting big things there, and it's been worrisome both to city staff and to Mr. Ike Leary at the bait shop. Sean Finley, city engineer, spoke with we have a third-party construction manager out there. We have worked with them to make sure that they understand what their role is there and make sure that they're doing what we're asking them to do. So they'll do a better job at that and coordinating where parking is and that kind of thing. Similar to what we did during the hurricane, when there was a lot of disruption with regard to construction over there, city staff recommended, and I am going to recommend tonight, and I can bring it to you back at your December meeting, that we waive the fees for the bait shop for December, January, and February to accommodate for that disruption, because he has really no business during that time. So, Randy, do I have to bring that back? We'll look at it. Okay. But if you have any objection to that, can you please let me know? And if not, then I will either bring it back or we'll move forward with that.
Anybody have any objection?
No objection at all. That's a great thing to do.
I just didn't know about November, the last couple weeks in November, or
He prepays that, so he's already done that. So he would rather have February than November.
Understood.
So
Good deal.
thank you, Mr. Leary. I appreciate that. And he's always very accommodating and great to work with, and we appreciate your patience as we undergo that. So we'll move ahead with that, and if we need to bring it back, we will. And like I said, if you have any issues, I'm happy to talk to you, but otherwise, good night. And happy Thanksgiving, I guess.
Any comments or questions for the city manager? If not, we'll go to the assistant city manager, Claire Whitley.
No, I just did not have enough time to prepare a speech for tonight. Thank you.
And thank you. And city attorney Randy Hayes.
No, sir. Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving.
And tonight we start with Deputy Mayor Kent.
All right. I just have one comment, and it's from Mr. Leary. You as well are a great business partner with the city of Ormond Beach, and Ms. Shanahan and city staff and the city commission are making sure that we make this right. It's going to be a wonderful asset in our community, and thanks for being patient with us, and thank you for the service you provide our residents. And it goes further and deeper than that. I mean, you're the man, you're the guy that shows up to each of the fishing tournaments for Ormond Beach children, and you bust out your grill and you bring your hot dogs, and I mean that's a form of love, and I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Commissioner Persis.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a couple of items I'd like to mention. I had the opportunity to attend the Security First opening last week, and I know Commissioner Selby was there and Mayor Partington was there, and it's just a wonderful building, and we are so fortunate to have the headquarters of Security First right here in our beautiful city of Ormond Beach. And if you haven't been in that building, you need to go. It's absolutely spectacular. I just wanted to mention that. And I want to just thank the leisure services, everyone involved with everything they did for Veterans Day. I think each and every veteran felt appreciated, cared for, and loved by all the activities. And you could tell leisure services loved it and loved what they were doing, and that's so important. So I was very proud to see that and sit in those activities that I was able to attend. So I just want to thank leisure services again for that. And my last item is I was asked to speak at the elected officials roundtable, I guess it was yesterday, and they asked me to speak about the City of Ormond Beach straw ban. And I had a PowerPoint that I presented, and I hope that I feel that I represented the City of Ormond Beach well, and was able to brag about everything that we are doing in Ormond Beach to really start fighting the plastic pollution issue. So with that, I say good night and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Littleton.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with everything Commissioner Persis said about the Veterans Day events. They were absolutely wonderful this year. Furthermore, I went to the Florida League of Cities conference last week, and it was a great conference. Learned a lot, of course. The league does a lot and prepares you for the upcoming session and a tax on home rule, or if there was also things about cybersecurity and how to manage a meeting and the such, and it was very informative. Furthermore, it's not Ormond Beach, but the last time I went to a Daytona Tortugas game, it was crazy. I mean, in the audience was Mayor of Port Orange, Don Burnett. He was sitting in the stands a few down. I ran into one of our budget advisory board members, Joe Hanoush. I'll name drop you here. He was there, and I was there with 4 of my siblings, and it was a great event. We caught 2 foul balls, one of which hit my brother and made him fall down, and he dropped. It was hilarious. It was just a great time, and it would be terrible to see them go, and I hope that they do not. And with that, I'll say happy Thanksgiving and good night.
Thank you, Commissioner Littleton. I heard you got a little rowdy there at the Florida League conference.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes.
By design, but
Yes.
still. Okay. I was a little shocked. Commissioner Selby.
Well, I was assuming it was a thirsty Thursday that you were there, Commissioner Littleton. Yeah, it's a good time to go. Just real briefly, the grand opening of the First Step homeless shelter will be Wednesday, December 11th, 10 a.m. And everybody is invited, so please put it on your calendar. And if you're able, please attend. You'll get to see the really fabulous facility that the city of Daytona Beach and Volusia County have built, and I think it should be a really great event. So Wednesday, December 10th at 10 a.m. And I would recommend you arrive early if you are planning on coming, because I think there'll be a pretty big crowd. And with that, I'll say happy Thanksgiving to everybody and good night.
Thank you. And Commissioner Littleton participated in one of the seminars given in the afternoon on Thursday. I think Mayor Herzberg from Deltona helped with that, but you were a angry citizen audience member, if I remember correctly. Good deal. Thank you for doing that. For the people that are new, it's beneficial for them to learn how to deal with those types of situations. And was Scott Payne involved with that too, Dr. Payne? Okay. Yeah, he's a great facilitator, respected around the state for his knowledge, and a former elected official as well, but long time contributor to the Florida League. And Commissioner Selby, thank you for all your hard work on the homeless issue, representing this commission and the entire city. It's got to be wonderful for you to see it finally happening, and for really the whole county. It's amazing, really a great time to see, and I agree with you. It's going to be jam-packed. I haven't been there yet. I've been offered tours, but just haven't had the time to get there. I've heard it's fantastic, and we're excited, and we're hoping it makes a huge difference for our residents, who we hear from both on panhandling issues frequently and then homelessness issues frequently. We're hoping this is going to be a big key component to answering a lot of those questions and helping with those issues. Security First was fantastic. I mean, it was an amazing day, historic day for Ormond Beach. To have over 400 jobs stay in this city is amazing in and of itself. The Burt family could have taken that anywhere, really. And we were lucky enough that they loved Ormond Beach enough to keep that here. It's also the flagship development in the Ormond Crossings development. And I saw Fred there, Fred Costello, former mayor, former state representative, on Thursday, and he was so pleased to see finally come to fruition his dream for the Ormond Crossings development. You have, and I drove by it today on 95. It really is stunning from the highway. Fred always said that it was going to look better than the AAA automobile building at Heathrow looks from I-4, and I think he's right. It does look better. It really is gorgeous, and it's going to be the kickoff to that development where 17 years ago we talked about hoping to have places where our children could stay in Ormond Beach and work and have quality paying jobs and fight the brain drain that goes on in Volusia County. And we're seeing that realization now. I think there's going to be more that follows. There's talk of making that area an insurance hub where you'll have light, clean jobs, and it's certainly well suited for it. This is an area where it's affordable to live if you have a good wage, and you can have a great quality of life. And I've got a copy of the brochure from the grand opening. The Burts did an amazing job with this, giving a nod to their past. They had the building on A1A for years and years. And when you look at whoever the architect was, did a brilliant job incorporating that into the current building while still having a modern, functional insurance building. And so anybody feel free to come up and take a look at that. Don't take it from me, but feel free to take a look at it. I want to keep that because it was so well done. And we can probably get a couple more if we need a couple more. Let's see. So that's Mayor Costello. The Veterans Day events were some of the best I've ever attended. To hear Dr. Kushner's, the guy is an American hero, and to hear his compelling stories of holding fellow prisoners of war, staring into their eyes as they passed away and watching the lights go out, it'll just move you to tears, move you to appreciate so much the sacrifices that have been made so that we can enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy. That was just a few events in 5 years of captivity. And for him, I somehow ended up lucky enough to sit next to him. It was exhausting for him to tell that story. And up until a few years ago, he couldn't tell that story, is what I'm told. And when he sat down, you could tell he was basically exhausted. But it's so important. It's such a gift for all of us to hear and for our children to hear, so that we don't forget the sacrifices that have been made. A.S. Minor was a young man who was a poet, and he worked in mortuary services, so he saw a lot of the very worst sides of war, and he gave a compelling presentation as well. On the Saturday where we had our Hometown Heroes banner celebration, Dr. I'm going to have trouble pronouncing this last name, I apologize, Slobodan Jazarevic, who is a amazing surgeon at Halifax Health, and also we promoted him to colonel, I think, in the U.S. Army. Yeah. He's a grade below that, but he is soon to be promoted. We went ahead and made the promotion. But he is an amazing human being who commanded in Iraq and Afghanistan all the medical services, and so he's seen a lot of the more difficult sides as well. And he gave a compelling speech at that Veterans Day celebration. So, and then the luncheon was fantastic. So our staff works really hard to make sure our veterans feel honored. The commission, of course, supports all those efforts, and so it's great to see it all come together. Let's see. The half cent, first of all, Commissioner Persis, before I get into half cent, did a great job yesterday representing the city and talking about the plastics issue and how we structure our ordinance to be very educational, to be very leadership driven by applying it to ourselves and being an example, and also how many restaurants have kind of jumped in line already by making sure to have biodegradable utensils and plates and paper straws, and they're just doing it voluntarily because they believe it's the right thing to do as a result of a lot of the press that resulted from our ordinance. And so Commissioner Persis did a great job explaining all that with the history and the education. It's obvious you were a career educator, lifelong educator. It was well received by the group, and so it would not surprise me in the next 6 months to a year if some other cities start to come along. And I think it was brilliant to have the copies of the ordinance there for each member, as well as the plastic straw and the reusable bags. So I just wanted to give you a shout out for that. The half-cent sales tax issue came up again, and I had not discussed that just because I hadn't felt like there was a lot of interest in moving forward with that. I just want to confirm whether that's the case or not, so that next time I'm back there, if I need to give a report, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's anybody who wants to move forward with the half cent, please let me know now. Otherwise, I'll just let them know that there's really not a lot of interest. There was a big push from the county, and if you read the News Journal article today, it seems like there's a big push to revive it. I don't know where that's coming from, but it's odd to me, and it struck me that if we aren't supportive of it, I guess we need to make that clear. There were some cities that were lukewarm to it. There were a couple cities who were possibly interested in it, but only if it happens in 2022. And so, I don't know if we have to decide that tonight or if we want to do a separate discussion item on it, but I would like to know where everybody stands on it, just so going forward I'm representing the commission's position and not saying something that's not correct. Deputy Mayor Kent.
Sure. Yeah, I'll tell you exactly where I stand on it. I'm a huge no. I've not had one constituent call me and say that they want to pay higher sales taxes because they live in one of the more financially depressed counties in the state of Florida, and they have some of the highest gas taxes, and they'd like to pay even more on every other item they purchase. So I'm a huge no on going forward. I mean, we just had a vote on this. The voters spoke loud and clear. They told us what they wanted and, more importantly, what they didn't want. So it helps me with why I'm where I am.
Understood. Thank you. Commissioner Persis.
Yeah, I would not be in favor of it at this time since we just recently voted on it.
Understood. Commissioner Littleton.
I concur.
I thought I knew where you were based on your comments. And Commissioner Selby, I remember your previous comments about needing more time and really having a lot of time if that was ever to come back again. I don't know if you've changed or...
Yeah, well, I just was curious. So are they talking about November of 20?
That's one option. They're talking about putting a committee together that would, including some of the folks who were against it, took that position, and trying to determine whether it would be November of 20 or whether it would be 2022. Mayor Burnett from Port Orange thought it would be better to have a election cycle go through and then readdress it, which would give plenty of time to set up a process more like the school board had, where you had an independent, verifiable committee of citizens that would make sure that the money was actually spent on what it was supposed to be spent on, things like that. But nothing's decided. They're still kicking it around.
And is this city driven or county driven, or where's the? That's the rub. I can't quite figure out the politics of that board and where the direction comes from. And I got to tell you, procedurally, things are a little loosey-goosey. I don't know, who has loosey-goosey. I forget who used that term exactly, but it's. I see kind of what happens, and I'm like, that doesn't seem like Robert's Rules of Order, but here we are. And if you read Clayton Park's article, it kind of tracks that. So somebody will have an idea and put it out there, and if nothing else is said, then that's what happens. Not necessarily as any final action, but that part needs to be tightened up, and I'll work on that at future meetings. But the impression I got was the county doesn't want to tackle it by themselves. They want it to come from the city, just like last time. And frankly, it was a miracle that they got 16 cities and the county to agree on something at one time. I mean, that was a moment in time that I really don't know will ever happen again. But Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think there's any question that there are huge needs out there, and I also think that the sales tax would be one of the easiest, least painful ways to pay for those needs. But I don't think there's a chance that it would pass in November. It's much too soon, and there hasn't been any communication or any marketing program or any sufficient citizen involvement to win an election on it. So I would be, I mean, at this time, I would, if you're talking about November of 2020, I'm not no.
okay, thank you. And Mayor Henry brought that up, that it needs to be citizen driven, not business community driven or government driven. And I think that was a comment that was well received. I mean, the CEO Business Alliance does a lot of fantastic things, but regrettably on this issue, they are not the group to be pushing for this. I share those feelings. I'll echo that at the next meeting. I've been talking to a lot of people about the half-cent sales tax, and when they talk about distrust of government, which I tend to take personally, because I think if there's any level of government that's the most transparent, the closest to the people, it's local government, and we work hard to be as transparent as possible. Really what they're talking about, from what I've been able to gauge, because I've asked them specifically about it, is they go all the way back to the Florida lottery and how that was sold 20-some, almost 30 years ago, whenever it was sold by the Florida legislature as new money for education. And then it didn't happen. It was like bait and switch. And those dollars from the lottery did go to education, but they took all the money that education had in that same or equal amount and moved that to swept it to other areas. And so, the public, the voters have an intelligence and just a common sense way of looking at things and understanding things, and they have a memory like an elephant as well. They don't forget things like that, and that's what causes the distrust in government, and that seems to be what they're thinking about. Another thing that was pointed out to me was a impact fee study from, I believe it was Jim Deneen, that was kind of suppressed or sat on for months at the county level, and so there was a big distrust of county government, even though that was before a lot of those people were there. There's been a big switchover, so that's where that's coming from. So I think those things need to be addressed in any future campaigns and moving forward. That might be something that folks want to take advantage of. The other thing I think that is at play when I talk about the common sense of the voter, they see millions and millions and millions of dollars being put into infrastructure as something that will drive huge amounts of growth. And there's a general consensus that they don't want huge amounts of growth in this area. They want things to move as slowly as possible. And so one way to do that is to not have more taxes to fund infrastructure. Couple that with the very conservative anti-tax groups, and you have a real uphill battle moving forward on any kind of half-cent sales tax. So all that said, I thank you for the direction, and I'll make a comment on growth because I attended the Q3 report at the county. It was at the airport on November 8th, and I like to point out these numbers every once in a while just because I'm so proud of how Ormond Beach continues to grow at a very moderate, I'd say even slow, some people would say sluggish or anemic, but we had 6 permits for new construction residential in Ormond Beach during the third quarter, 2019. Take that in relation to Orange City. On the west side, they had 45. Port Orange had 25. We tied with Lake Helen at 6. Deltona had 150. DeLand had 119. New Smyrna Beach had 187. Daytona Beach had 108. So when you look at the areas where explosive growth is happening, we're grateful that it's not here, and that's a good thing. 187 building permits in New Smyrna Beach. That's 182 more than we had here in Ormond Beach, and that's why our growth rate continues to be, as it has been for the last 10 or 15 years, about 1% a year, and I just wanted to point that out. The last thing I need to bring up tonight is the possibility of an enclosed gymnasium at the South Ormond Neighborhood Center. See where the commission is on that. I met with former Commissioner Boehm, now Ambassador Boehm and Main Street Volunteer Boehm, at the Sonk Gym on a cool Saturday morning, and we walked around. He talked about the opportunities for that. It's something that could be done maybe in the $800,000 or $900,000 range with some grant funding for approximately half of it. Obviously, I'm always impressed with Commissioner Bohm's planning and preparation, as well as his dedication to the youth of Ormond Beach and the sports activities of Ormond Beach, and just need to find out where the rest of the commission is. He mentioned to me that there needs to be obviously a design before anything else could move forward. The only thing that struck me, it seems like it's a tight space, but I'm not an expert, so I can't tell you how that would work or not work. But the design is within the city manager's spending authority. It's just a matter of whether anyone else on the commission wants to ask the city manager to get that done. And then the other question, which I think is a valid question, is the process, because this is something that's coming to us that hasn't been, I think it's been vetted by the Leisure Service Advisory Board, but it wasn't on their original list of priorities. So it's kind of a pop-up possibility, and I would imagine the city manager doesn't want to spend $25,000 or less, any amount, if there's no desire from the commission to see that go forward, or if there's a feeling that it hasn't gone through the proper process. So if we could, anyone in particular wants to weigh in, or if we could hear from each of us on our thoughts on that. Deputy Mayor Kent. Sure.
Yeah, yesterday afternoon I had the pleasure of meeting with Commissioner Boehm at the South Ormond Neighborhood Center, and just from my memory, the Racing and Recreation grant, I think we received one, and that was used at our Boundless Playground out by the softball quads. And I think if we could get something prepared where we could apply for that grant and receive that grant money, then I'm extremely interested in the idea that Commissioner Boehm has presented. The South Ormond Neighborhood Center, I've got to tell you, it's a special place. And while I was there, I was able to meet with Stretch Livingston, and I was just talking to him, and I was bragging about some stories I had heard in the community where Stretch knows everybody that comes to the South Ormond Neighborhood Center. And if somebody or a couple of people show up and their intentions are not to have a wholesome, clean, fun time, Stretch runs them off. He lets them know that this is Ormond. Stretch told me this is where my grandparents were raised. And while I'm talking to Stretch yesterday, we have one of our officers, Greg Stokes, pulls up. He's off duty. He's just pulling up to just check on things, and it's his community. He's just checking to make sure that South Ormond Neighborhood Center is doing well. And it's a special place. The last time we've done something pretty big there was the first splash pad in Ormond Beach, and I'm proud of that project, and it's a wonderful thing for our community. And with everything I've mentioned there, and with the idea of possibly getting some grant money, I too thought that it could be a little tight, but I'm not an engineer, and I was questioning, only one side, of course, would get bleachers because you don't want to mess up the tennis courts on the other side. But then I thought, how many bleachers do you really need? I mean, the big games are going to be played on the other side of the South Ormond Neighborhood Center, where they've got a much larger area. But this would enable it would put it indoors. It would enable our residents to have something extra there. So I'm another one who's in favor of it.
Thank you. And we're talking about an enclosed second basketball gym at the Sonk, and it's been 40 years, I guess, since we've had an additional gym in the city. So I don't think too many people question the need for it. Commissioner Littleton.
Thank you, Mayor. I met with Commissioner Bowen at 2:30 today, so if I'm allowed, Mayor, I would like to ask staff something. If One is knows about CBDG funding for that area. We're putting in exercise equipment in one of the spaces over there. And if you guys know the little area where we could extend, build, are we putting the exercise equipment that's supposed to go outside in that specific field? And if we are, can we change it, or where's it being put as opposed to that outdoor basketball?
Leisure Services Director Robert Carolyn.
Yeah, so currently that fitness, we're sort of call it a fitness center, but it is going to be outside of that area that's in question for the basketball court. It's going to be closer between there and the street on the other side of the sidewalk. I don't know if you've noticed that small little piece of apparatus that is there now. They call it the teen corner of South Ormond. It's just a little piece of almost like a shade structure, right, relatively close to the road.
Like with a seat, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, sir.
Well, that's kind of like, how much equipment are we putting there, and how far towards the sidewalk
so
is it going to be?
It's going to be centered between that small piece that we were just mentioning and the sidewalk, and it's not a relatively large piece of equipment. It's sort of all sort of contained together, so you can have multiple stations working out, sort of like a universal set you would see in a gym.
So with that in mind, I'm fine with putting forth the money for the study.
Commissioner Persis.
Yes. Being an educator my whole career, I am definitely in favor of providing activities for students after school and keeping them involved in something that's, something that's healthy and, as Deputy Commissioner Kent says, wholesome and keeps them out of trouble. I think it'd be awesome. So I definitely am in favor of this also.
Good deal. Commissioner Selby.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be meeting with Mr. Bohm tomorrow morning, actually, at the South Ormond. He described to me briefly what the project is, and then you've described it in equal detail. One thought that occurs to me is that I believe we have an update to the Leisure Services Master Plan going to come up, I think, this current fiscal year. I don't know yet whether or not there is a need to rush on this or not. Maybe we should roll this into the update of that plan. One of the issues, and I don't know if it's an issue or not, but it seems like parking is pretty slim at South Ormond Neighborhood Center. Not a lot of parking there. And how is that impacted if we double the basketball court capacity? What happens then? So I'm just throwing those out there. I mean, I know with the Y losing eliminating their court, that we're down a court. So I'm definitely not opposed to the concept of looking into this. We do have 56 North Beach that we're going to, not that would be a recreation facility, but we have that as a cultural services or some other leisure services type facility coming up that's going to require a fair amount of money. We got the McDonald House that's going to require some capital funds and so forth. So I just like to kind of keep it all in perspective.
That's smart. Yep. And it's you always run the risk of, it sounds good at $700,000 or $800,000, but with mission creep, there is some overflow parking south of the splash pad. I believe they use that area for overflow parking. It's not perfect for that, but there's a little bit there. So that's going to have to be something that will be considered. And City Manager Shanahan.
Mr. Mayor, based on what I hear tonight, there seems to be enough support to go ahead with the study, so I will move forward with working to get that accomplished.
That sounds good.
Okay.
And if it can be part of the update to the master plan or included with that?
Well, I think the problem is that grant is usually due in the springtime, like February, March. So we would need at least a conceptual design for that in order to apply for that grant. So I don't think the timing works for that.
Okay.
Because I don't think we'll have the master plan awarded by then, or nor completed by then.
Endocrine disruptors, Jim, thank you for that. I had to Google it just to see exactly what that was, but certainly something we should be aware of. And I wanted to mention December 14th is the Christmas parade. It's going to be fantastic as always, and we'll close by wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you all very much.